On December 7th, 1870, thousands of people flooded the streets of St. Louis for the funeral procession of 51-year-old Eliza Haycraft. The St. Louis Globe-Democrat reported on the funeral and the, quote, remarkable career of a remarkable woman. And though the paper labeled her career as remarkable, some people would have described her work as immoral.
So from the accounts, she comes to St. Louis and she enters into the sex trade as an, in part of it, and then later goes on to have her own brothel and her own operation.
Amanda Clark, a public historian at the Missouri History Museum, says Haycraft became a prominent business leader in the city by running what was once called a bawdy house, also known as a brothel. We don't know much about her life before she came to St. Louis from Callaway County, but she was most likely single and poor. This photo is thought to be a young Haycraft.
And if you were a woman on your own, if you weren't married, if you didn't have family support, you were pretty vulnerable. And you really had to have some agency and take control of your own story, but you were also vulnerable to society in general. She was illiterate, she couldn't read, but she did understand business, and she understood opportunity, and she understood using her talents to the best of her ability.
And because many people were passing through St. Louis at that time, business was booming.
Because she amassed a huge fortune. I mean, when she died, she had $250,000 in her estate, which is about over $30 million now. It's a huge amount of money for a woman at that time.
Haycraft still often faced fines and jail time for running her business, though.
And most of the time, politicians or the police, they were turning a blind eye to it, and they understood that that was kind of part of societies. But then we would have, from time to time, you would have enough of a movement to crack down on it or to enforce the laws, and that's usually where she shows up in the legal record.
Despite her crimes, though, she was also known as a philanthropist. For example, in 1859, the St. Louis Globe-Democrat reported that Haycraft donated $50 towards a Christmas breakfast for the poor, which is about $1,900 today.
So she donates some of that money when she dies, but she also, in her life, in the later years of her life, is donating to orphanages, women and children's, causes after the Civil War. So she's putting money back into the community.
And it's worth noting that Haycraft was not the only prominent madam in St. Louis at that time. Madams Priscilla Henry and Sarah Babe Connor owned brothels right around where Ballpark Village is today.
And the thing that sets them apart is they are both black women, and they are both formerly enslaved, and they've come to St. Louis after emancipation.
Both of them were known for their wealth and business success, and Babe Connor for her philanthropy. Like Haycraft, Connor was also honored with a huge funeral procession. But Connor has a large gravestone in Calvary Cemetery, whereas Haycraft has an unmarked plot in Bell Fountain.
So the unmarked grave is the concession. It is the thing saying, you can be buried here, but by giving her a monument that looks just like the others, right? That would be kind of acknowledging both her as a woman business leader and the type of and the sex trade that she was part of.
Rumor has it that in order to be buried in Bell Fountain, Haycraft threatened to release the names of some of her high-powered clients to the public.
I would definitely say it would be highly likely she pulled strings or greased wheels or any of the little phrases we want to use to say that she got what she wanted.
Haycraft died of heart failure on December 5th, 1870, which unfortunately for her was the same year St. Louis became the first U.S. city to legalize prostitution. The law, known as the Social Evil Ordinance, only lasted for 4 years. And though she's been dead for over 150 years, people are still fascinated by her story. Her life is the subject of a book, a play, and many works of art.
I think Eliza Haycraft, like so many women in history, is just a great example of someone not living the norm that we thought, right, and kind of taking agency on their own story. Her fortune is impressive, and from someone who couldn't read and came from simple means. So the whole story is definitely one of those just really good rags to riches type stories that we are very drawn to.
But regardless of how you feel about Eliza Haycraft's profession, well, I think the Reverend at her funeral said it best. Let him that is without sin among you cast the first stone.